Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, scholars, policymakers, and friends, today, I stand before you to speak on a subject that lies at the very heart of modern geopolitics and international economics: India's approach to the current trade issue with the United States, and the statement made by India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal that New Delhi is approaching this challenge with, and I quote, "a very open mind." This is not a mere statement. It is a window into India's evolving role in the global economy, its diplomatic balancing act, and its aspirations to emerge as a responsible, yet assertive, global power. To unpack this subject, we must look at it from multiple dimensions: the context of the U.S.-India trade dispute, the larger geopolitical environment, the strategic rationale behind India's openness, and what it means for the future of Indo-US relations and for the world at large. Over the last several months, U.S.-India trade relations have come under strain. The United States citing concerns over India's continued purchase of discounted Russian oil and certain domestic industrial policies imposed tariffs of up to 50% on Indian imports. These tariffs cover sectors such as steel, aluminum, and certain manufactured goods. For India, which has been trying to increase exports to the U.S., its largest trading partner, this is a serious challenge. The U.S. market accounts for billions of dollars in Indian goods, and tariffs of this magnitude can create ripple effects for Indian businesses, workers, and consumers. But what is crucial here is not just the tariffs themselves, but the principle at play. The U.S. is essentially signaling that India's continued oil trade with Russia, amidst Western sanctions following the Ukraine conflict, carries costs. Washington has been pushing its partners to reduce dependence on Russian energy, while India has maintained that its energy policy is guided by national interest and affordability for its citizens. So the U.S. pressure is economic, but the roots are strategic. It's a contest of priorities. Washington wants alignment on Russia, while India insists on autonomy. India has always cherished strategic autonomy in foreign policy. From the days of Nehru and the non-aligned movement, through the Cold War and into the multipolar world we inhabit today, India's guiding principle has been partnerships with all dependence on none. When Minister Goyal says India is approaching the trade issue with an open mind, he is emphasizing flexibility, dialogue, and pragmatism. But let us be clear, this openness does not mean weakness or submission. Rather, it reflects India's confidence in engaging with the U.S. as an equal partner, not as a subordinate. This is consistent with India's broader geopolitical philosophy: multi-alignment. India maintains close ties with the U.S., buys defense equipment from Russia, expands trade with the European Union, negotiates with China, and simultaneously builds deep bonds with the global South. In that sense, India's open mind is not about bowing to US pressure. It is about keeping channels of cooperation alive while asserting sovereignty over its own economic and strategic choices. Let us look at some numbers. In 2024, India-US bilateral trade crossed $200 billion, making the United States India's largest trading partner. U.S. firms have invested heavily in India's digital economy, defense sector, and renewable energy markets. Similarly, Indian firms from IT giants like Infosys and TCS to pharmaceutical companies are deeply entrenched in the U.S. market. This interdependence is significant. For Washington, India is not just a trade partner but also a strategic counterweight to China in the Indo-Pacific. For New Delhi, the U.S. is both a market and a source of advanced technology and capital. Therefore, while tariffs and disputes may flare up, both nations know that they cannot afford a trade war. The costs would be too high and the geopolitical fallout too severe. One cannot talk about this issue without addressing the elephant in the room: Russia. India's imports of Russian crude have surged since 2022, making Moscow one of New Delhi's top energy suppliers. Why? Because Russian oil offered at a discount allows India to keep domestic fuel prices stable, an essential factor in a country of 1.4 billion people. Energy affordability is not a luxury. It is a necessity for India's growth and stability. The U.S. understands this, but it also sees Russian oil revenues as fueling Moscow's war machine. Hence, the pressure on India. Yet let me point out, India has not violated any international law. It buys oil in line with its national interests and in compliance with global trade mechanisms. In fact, in many cases, Indian refiners buy Russian crude, process it, and sell petroleum products to Europe itself. This is the irony of global geopolitics. Interdependence breeds contradictions. By declaring an open mind, India is sending several messages. To Washington, we are willing to talk, negotiate, and even make adjustments, but don't expect us to abandon our national interest. To Moscow, we will not bow to Western pressure. Our energy partnership remains intact. To the world, India is a responsible, pragmatic power that seeks solutions, not confrontation. This multi-layered signaling is a hallmark of Indian diplomacy, nuanced, flexible, and rooted in realism. Let's consider the broader environment. The world today is marked by a rising China challenging U.S. dominance, a Russia-West confrontation over Ukraine, economic uncertainty caused by inflation, supply chain disruptions, and energy volatility. In this environment, India's role is pivotal. The U.S. sees India as a democratic ally in Asia. Russia sees India as a trusted partner. Europe sees India as a market of the future. The global South sees India as a voice for developing nations. Thus, India cannot afford to alienate any major bloc. Its trade openness, its diplomatic open mind, is part of a strategy to maximize options, minimize risks. The real story here is not about tariffs or oil. It is about India's long-term vision. By 2030, India is projected to become the world's third-largest economy. Its choices today will shape its role in tomorrow's global order. An open mind means keeping trade flows smooth, attracting investment, strengthening partnerships, avoiding unnecessary confrontations. But it also means drawing clear red lines. India will not compromise on sovereignty, will not accept dictates, and will not abandon its people's needs for someone else's agenda. This is not the first time India has faced such dilemmas. In the 1970s, during the Cold War, India faced U.S. pressure over its ties with the Soviet Union. In the 1990s, after nuclear tests, India faced U.S. sanctions. Yet, each time, India endured, negotiated, and eventually turned those challenges into opportunities. Today's trade tensions must be seen in that historical light. They are temporary hurdles, not permanent barriers. How should India and the U.S. move forward? Let me suggest a few pathways. Dialogue over confrontation. Both nations must use trade talks, not tariffs, to resolve differences. Sectoral cooperation, energy, technology, defense, and climate partnerships can deepen despite disagreements. Respect for autonomy. The U.S. must recognize that India's policies are driven by its own needs, not by alignment with Moscow. Shared goals. Both nations share an interest in ensuring a free, open, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. That bigger picture must not be lost. In conclusion, let me emphasize, India's open mind is a reflection of its confidence, maturity, and vision. This phrase does not mean yielding to pressure. It means engaging with all, balancing interests, and building pathways for cooperation. It means India is ready to listen, negotiate, and adapt, but always from a position of strength and sovereignty. The India of today is not a passive recipient of global trends. It is an active shaper of the global order. Its trade policies, its diplomatic posture, its energy choices, all of these reflect a nation that is rising, self-assured, and determined to secure prosperity for its people while contributing to global stability. So, as we watch this U.S.-India trade issue unfold, let us remember, it is not about conflict. It is about conversation. It is not about submission. It is about strength. And it is not about narrow disputes. It is about the future of a partnership that has the potential to shape the 21st century. Thank you.